ओम सदाशिवसमारंभां शंकराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ओम तत्सत। ओम नमः शिवाय। So Tanmay, would you chant verses 25 to 30?
Starting with the 25th one.
Yeah.
Atmanas satchidanshascha buddhirvrittiriti dvayam संयोज्य च विवेकेन जानामीति प्रवर्तते। आत्मनो विक्रिया नास्ति बुद्धिर्बोधो न जात्विति। जीवः सर्वम् अलङ्ज्ञात्वा ज्ञाता द्रष्टेति मुह्यते। रज्जु सर्पवदात्मानं जीवं ज्ञात्वा भयं वहे। नाहं जीवः परात्मेति ज्ञातेश्चेत् निर्भयो भवेत्। आत्मावभासयत्येकः बुद्ध्यादीनिन्द्रियाण्यपि ईपो घटादिवत् स्वात्मा जडैस्तैर्नावभास्यते।
दीपो घटादिवत् स्वात्मा जडैस्तैर्नावभास्यते।
स्वबोधेनान्यबोधेच्छा बोधरूपतयात्मनः न दीपस्यान्यदीपेच्छा यथा स्वात्म प्रकाशने। निषेध्य निखिलोपाधीन् नेति नेतीति वाक्यतः इत्यादैक्यं महावाक्यैः जीवात्म परमात्मनोः। Acharya are muted.
Right. Thank you, Tanmay. So now we look at the verse. So this verse has a peculiarity as compared to the previous verses. Can anybody notice it? What is the peculiar part of this verse when compared to all the other verses we have seen?
There is no drishtanta.
There is no drishtanta. Very good. So that is the peculiarity of this verse. There is no example in this particular verse. It's an aberration. And this sloka, it is defining the rise of knowledge. How does jnanam arise? So look at the first word, Satchid Amshascha. So Sat, Chit, Amsha. Of what? Atmanaha. So Atmanaha, Satchida Amshascha. What does it do? Sanyojya. It mixes. That aspect. It's not really correct to call it as part. Amsa literally means part. But since Atma is partless, Brahman is partless, this Amsha has to be taken as that aspect. Such the aspect of Atman. Sanyojya, it mixes with what? Buddhir vritihi. Buddhihi vritihi. The vritti of the buddhi, the thought. It mixes. And iti dvayam, these two, which is the mixture, these two having mixed, which is the amsha, Satchidananda amsha, having mixed with buddhir vritihi, with the thought. And why does it mix? Avivekena, due to aviveka. And this mixture, jnanam iti pravartate. So jnanam iti, aham jnanami iti. It functions as the knower. Pravartate is the functioning. So what is the purpose of this particular verse? There is a constant doubt. Supposing, for example, you are saying I know. The I know that know is a verb. It's a kriya. And grammatically, any kriya, any verb, it cannot function in isolation. It requires a locus, a support. So in Sanskrit, we call the kriya requires a ashraya. Ashraya is the locus or the support. To give an example, when somebody says that he is doing something, so doing is the verb. So, and the ashraya is what? The ashraya, the support is the doer. The locus is the doer. So when the verb doing is used, that doing refers to a locus. It functions from within a locus, which is the karta, the doer. For example, I say that I am going to the shop. I am going. So going is the verb. I am the person who is going. So I is the karta. And therefore, I am going to the shop or wherever. That verb going relates to the karta, the subject in this matter, in this particular connection. And when I go to the shop, remember that there is always a change in the karta. So that's the implication over here, that wherever there is a kriya, wherever there is a verb, the ashraya, the locus to which the verb pertains, that locus always changes. For example, I am going to the shop. So I am the karta, I am the locus. And here the I refers to the body, mind, sense complex. Okay, the I here is not the Atma. I refers to the body, mind complex. It is the Gauna interpretation. I, the body, mind complex. And when I say I am going, is there a change in me? In this I? Yes, because the I changes location. He is walking, he is breathing faster because of the exertion, he is sweating. All these things, right? And when he goes to the shop, he will be talking, then he will be carrying something back. So any kriya, any action, any verb, any action which is done because of the verb, it requires a change in the locus. Okay, that is one fundamental rule which you have to agree upon. Any verb brings about a change in the locus.
Acharya, could you repeat this once more, please?
Any verb, verb always has a karta as the function. Verb is basically something which denotes action, right? So I am eating. Eating is the verb. Who is eating? I, the karta, I am eating. Do I change because of the eating? Does the verb indicate that there is any change in me? Yes, because the food has gone inside my stomach. So any verb, the usage of any verb will have to be understood as a change happening in the karta. That sentence is to be very clearly assimilated. So is that clearly understood is the question.
Om Acharya ji, so are you trying to say that the verb, the karma aspect becomes associated with the
Karta.
Karta here, that is with the karma aspects of the karta, like the body, mind, intellect is the action.
Yes.
So that is that what you're trying to say?
Yes. So if you are saying you're going for a walk or you're walking, then the walking verb is located where? What is the ashraya of the walking verb? It is I, the body, mind, sense complex.
Right.
And because I am walking, then I am, losing weight, I am sweating, and my location is changing. And therefore, any verb will definitely ensure that the karta, the locus, will undergo change. That is the point which is to be understood. No verb can be used without a change happening in the karta.
So it's the attributes that, so there's the verb and then the adjectives associated with the body, mind, sense complex.
Yes, all changes will take place in the body, mind, sense complex. So is that clear to everybody? Because that is the central, idea behind the discussion.
Essentially bringing home the point that the body, mind, sense complex is constantly undergoing change.
Yes. So now you can see where it is leading, right? And therefore, when I say I know, when I say I know that I'm Atma, the argument by the Purvapakshi is that using that same, argument, you, the Atma, must be changing. Do you understand? Because
Yes.
the verb necessarily brings about a change in the karta, in the ashraya, in the locus. The word know is also kriya, also verb. And therefore, when I say I know, I, the Atma, must therefore be necessarily changing. Okay, that is the Purvapakshi argument. And this verse is addressing that particular doubt. So Shankara is saying here that, okay, fine. Verb, usage of a verb definitely implies that the karta changes, that the locus changes. But to say that Atma is changing because of this will mean that you are saying that the locus of knowledge is in the Atma. And Shankara is asking here, where does knowledge take place? And here he says, buddhihi vrittihi. Any knowledge doesn't take place in the Atma. It takes place in the intellect as a vritti, as a thought. And then what happens? Avivekena sanyojya. Because of lack of viveka, avivekena, because of ignorance, sanyojya, adhyasa takes place. That I know that change taking place in the intellect is superimposed upon I, the Atma. And therefore you say, I know. So change is in the mind, in buddhi alone. Because the vritti is in the mind. There is no vritti in the Atma. All changes take place in Anatma alone. And they don't take place in Atma. Yes, they do take place with the presence, in the presence of the Atma. So the reflected consciousness is generated in the presence of the original consciousness. But the reflected consciousness is generated in the reflecting medium, which is in this case is the buddhi. And therefore, the thought, the vritti, takes place in the mind only, in the intellect only. So Atma has got Sat and Chit, Buddhi has got vritti, the thought. And how does knowledge take place? We have to recall the discussion we had in the very beginning of Atma Bodha. The vritti comes, the Chaitanyam, the consciousness, the OC, it pervades the thought, it pervades the vritti, which is the reflecting medium, right? The moment you say Buddhi has got vritti, Buddhi is reflecting medium. The vritti itself, being a change in the Buddhi, is a reflecting medium. Then the consciousness, the OC, pervades the vritti, the reflecting medium. And therefore, in that vritti, which is the reflecting medium, you get the reflection of the OC. And therefore, in that vritti, you get reflected Sat and reflected Chit. And joining both, I say, I know. But this I know, this I is the reflecting medium plus original consciousness. The I is RC over here, not the OC. And therefore, though it is the RC which says I know, because of aviveka, there is superimposition. And then I say that I, the Atma, knows. Right? In this particular sloka, Shankara is demolishing the argument that there is any change in the Atma. The change takes place only in the vritti, in the reflecting medium. Okay? Hopefully clear. Very important concept.
Yes.
All right.
Om, can you give a little example if you don't mind, Acharya ji?
Just give an example.
No, I'm not clear with that. If you can give me something else too.
When you say I am thinking, where is the thought?
In the mind.
Is mind Atma or Anatma?
In the Atma.
Anatma.
Mind is not Atma. Mind is Anatma.
Anatma.
And therefore, the thought is taking place in the Anatma, not in the Atma, which is exactly what Shankara is saying. All changes take place in Anatma alone, not in the Atma.
Okay. That is where my mistake is. Thank you.
Yeah, please be very clear that mind is reflected consciousness. It is not original consciousness. Original consciousness is Atma. Reflected consciousness is the reflection of the original consciousness in the reflecting medium. It is Mithya only. Okay, now we look at the next verse, verse number 26, where he says, Atmanaha Vikriya Nasti. So this is a summary of what the previous verse said. You can understand, Atmanaha Vikriya Nasti. For the Atma, there is no Vikriya. Vikriya means change or modification. And he says, Buddhehe Bodhaha na jatu iti. So jatviti has to be broken into jatu iti. So and the buddhehe is to be broken. So buddhehe bodhaha na jatu iti. For the buddhi, what does jatu mean? Those of you who studied the Gita, where did you come across the word jatu? Come on.
Natvevaham jatunasam.
Yes, Natvevaham jatunasam. What does jatu mean over there? Forgotten. Jatu is ever or never. And therefore, buddhehe bodhaha na jatu iti. For the buddhi, for the intellect, na jatu bodhaha. There is never any awareness. There is never any consciousness. There is never any knowledge for the buddhi. And you have to add by itself. Without the help of the OC, the buddhi is jada. It is inert. And in an inert vastu, there can never be knowledge. Therefore, for the buddhi, na jatu bodhaha iti. For the intellect, which is jada by it, which is anatma, there can be never any consciousness, never any knowledge by itself. And jivaha sarvam alam gyatva. So the word alam, it's a rare usage. The word alam means without any prayojanam, without any what they call use. So in vain. So jivaha sarvam alam gyatva. Even though knowing all this in vain, he knows all this. Then even then what happens? Gyata drishteti muhyati. Muhyati is because of delusion. Gyata drishteti. He thinks that he is the gyata, the knower, and he thinks that he is a seer. Whereas in reality, what is it? It is the reflecting medium plus OC alone. The reflected consciousness alone, which is both the knower and the seer. But this jiva, because of ajnanam, because of mohyam, because of moha, because of delusion, he superimposes the status of gyata, knower, and drishta, seer, onto himself. And therefore, he becomes what? Vishva, Taijasa, and Prajna. This Vishva, Taijasa, and Prajna are superimposed statuses. They are not his real status. The real status is Nirguna Atma. But Nirguna Akarta Atma. But because of Ajnanam, what belongs to the RC, he takes upon himself and he says, I am Vishwa, I am Taijasa, and I am Prajna. All these three are basically Mithya only. All three are RCs. All RC is Mithya. Why is RC Mithya?
It has a dependent
It has a dependence upon what?
upon the OC. The Shuddha Chaitanyam.
No, it does not depend upon the OC.
RM.
It depends upon the RM. Right? Because OC, nothing happens. OC can never go away. OC is always there. So there's no question of dependence. Dependence is there when something has the capacity not to be there. So whenever we say that RC is dependent upon OC, you have to understand the statement may be theoretically correct. But practically, does OC ever go anywhere? So that dependence is not dependence at all. Because OC is always there. It's always available to you. So when you say dependence, you are talking about something which has the potential of not being there in future. That is the RM. RM can come and the RM can go. And that is why RC is dependent upon the RM. Okay. I hope that is clear. All right. Now we look at verse number 27. So he says, Jivam Gyatva means what? I have understood that I am a jiva. I have successfully superimposed the status of the RC onto myself, the OC, and therefore I am now convinced that I am a jiva. So jivam gyatva, having known that I am a jiva, bhayam vahet. I am overcome by fear. Why? He gives an example. Rajju sarpavat atmanam. So Atmanam here is that person who is seeing the rope and thinking it is a snake. There is no real snake. But because the illusory snake has been superimposed upon the rope by the person who is watching the snake or the rope, he's overcome by fear. Similarly, the person who considers himself a jiva is also overcome by fear. And he says, Naham jivaha paramatma iti. So there are two sentences over here. Jivam gyatva bhayam vahet. If you consider yourself as a jiva, you will be overcome by fear. And if you say, Na aham jivaha, I am not a jiva, paramatma iti, but I am the paramatma itself, then gyatesh chet nirbhayo bhavet. So gyatesh chet. Chet, whenever I know. Gyatesh chet. If I know, naham jivaha paramatma. So gyatesh chet naham jivaha paramatma. If I know that I am the paramatma and not the jiva, nirbhayo bhavet. I will become fearless. When I am jnana swarupaha. So when I am jnana swarupaha, I am Paramatma. When I am Gyatru Swarupaha, I am Jivatma. It's a very important statement. If I am consider myself as the very nature of Jnanam, then I am Paramatma. But if I consider myself as Gyatru, the knower, then I am Jivatma. Unfortunately, most of us say that I am knower. Nobody says I am the knowledge itself. So when I am Jnanam, so Jnanam here is awareness, consciousness. In the knowledge that I am consciousness itself, I am Paramatma. But when I say that I know, I become the Gyatru, the knower. So Gyatru Swarupa is Jivatma. And Shankara is saying that the moment you become Jnata, the moment you take upon yourself the mantle of knower, automatically the other two will come. Together with Jnata, what will come? Jnanam and Jnayam. Together with Pramata, what will come? Pramanam and Prameyam. And these are all limiting factors. The Jnanam is a limiting factor. The Jnayam is a limiting factor. The Pramanam is a limiting factor. The Prameyam is a limiting factor. And because of these two limiting factors, Parichinnam will come. The limitation will come because the Gyata is limited by Jnanam and Jnayam. The Pramata is limited by Pramanam and Prameyam. And the moment you are Parichinna, the moment you are limited, Raga Dvesha will come. What I want will come. What I don't want will come. And because of that, my actions to secure what I want and to get rid of what I don't want. So Pravritti and Nivritti will come. And once Pravritti and Nivritti comes, then Punyam and Papam will come. And when Punyam and Papam comes, it will be automatically followed by Sanchita, Agami and Prarabdha. And we get into the cycle of Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam. So this is what is called Samsaram Bhayam Bhavet. This is called Bhayam, the fear. The fear of being in samsara, it comes. Okay. So we'll stop after this next verse, we'll stop for a minute. Look at any differences, any doubts. So, Atma avabhasayet ekaha buddhihi indriyani api deepaha gatadivat swatma. So, ekaha, single. Ekaha atma avabhasayet. That non-dual Atma, it illuminates, it lights up. What? Buddhi adi indriyani api. Buddhi adi indriyani api. It lights up the intellect as well as the sense organs. It illuminates the intellect as well as the sense organs, like Deepaha Gatadivat. Like Deepaha, the lamp, it illuminates the pot. Right? And the last quarter is very important. Jadaihi taihi na avabhasayate. Jadaihi taihi. Just by themselves, these jadaihi, inert objects, swatma jadaihi. They are inert by themselves. What do? Na avabhasayate. They cannot illuminate anything, neither others nor themselves. So, swatma jadaihi means by themselves, they are inert. Taihi means these objects. These objects are inert by themselves. And na avabhasayate, they cannot illuminate anything else or themselves. So the question here is, all knowledge requires a tool for the knowledge, right? And all these tools, they belong to what? To the koshas. And therefore, if I am going to negate the koshas, I am negating all the tools for knowledge, isn't it? I am negating all the instruments for knowledge, because all the instruments for knowledge, the mind, the intellect, all these are what? Part of the koshas only. And if you are negating the koshas, how will I know the Atma once all the koshas are negated? So Shankara is giving the answer to that question here in this particular sloka, saying that all koshas are jadam. Taihi swatma jadaihi. All the koshas are jadam. They cannot illuminate anything. They cannot generate any knowledge without the blessing of Atma. What is our personal experience is that my mind and sense organs illumine the world, right? And the answer is that the mind and the sense organs are illumining the world, not because they are Chetanam, not because they are a conscious instrument, but because they have borrowed consciousness from the Atma. Chaitanyam has been borrowed from the Atma, and taking this borrowed Chaitanyam, these sense organs and the mind, they are illuminating the external world. To expect them to illuminate the Atma is like expecting the moonlight to illuminate the sun. And therefore he says, Atma ekaha buddhyadini indriyani avabhasayati. This non-dual Atma alone illumines all the koshas. So buddhyadini indriyani, they are referring to the various koshas. And therefore there's a general rule which you have to derive from here. The seen cannot become the seer. And the seer cannot become the seen. The perceiver can never become the perceived. The illuminator can never illumine the illumined. And therefore, how do I know I am the Atma? How do I know that me, which is the Atma? And the answer here is that Atma is known all the time as Aham, Aham, Iti. And this point is to be noted very, very carefully. Atma Jnanam is never an event in time. A pot Jnanam, the Ghata Jnanam, or pot knowledge, is an event in time. Why? Because pot knowledge requires the operation of sense organs. Your eyes have to see the pot. When the eyes see the pot vritti is generated in the mind. That pot vritti is then pervaded by Swarupa Jnanam. That Swarupa Jnanam pervading the pot vritti generates what is known as pot Jnanam. So it's an event in time, right? It starts when you open your eyes and look at the pot, and ends when the pot knowledge is generated in the brain, in your intellect. But here, Atma is always available as Aham, Aham, Aham. I am, I am, I am. So when you say I am, you are referring to Atma. When you say I am a boy, I am refers to Atma, boy refers to Anatma. And this I am, the Atma is shining, and because of the Atma Chaitanyam, the body, mind, sense complex is also shining. So two things are shining. I, the Atma, shining by itself. I don't need any other external event to shine. I don't need any external light to shine. The body, mind complex, it shines, but with the Chaitanyam borrowed from Atma. So every time we are always aware of two things. The first is I, the Atma, the self-illumined one, the self-effulgent one. And the second is my body, which I know with the borrowed Chaitanya. So I am the self-effulgent, self-revealed at all times. Aham, aham, aham. I am revealed at all times. There is no time when I am not revealed. And the body is the object of my knowledge. So I am the subject. The body is the object. I can never become unknown because I am always, always known. And in his Shankara, in his Adhyasa Bhashyam, in the Brahma Sutras, in his Adhyasa Bhashyam, Shankara says, "Na kaschit na aham asmi iti pratyeti." No one ever says, I am not. Very beautiful line. No one ever says, I am not. And in the Keno Upanishad, there is a little mantra, Pratibodha Viditam Matam. In whatever I see, in whatever I experience, Pratibodha, whatever I experience, Atman is always known. I need not work for Atman experience. Whenever I say I, that Atman experience is there. And there's nothing that I can do without using that pronoun I. And that pronoun I, it means I, the Atma. To say I am is Paramatma. When I add man, woman, tall, short, happy, fat, thin, then I'm converting that Paramatma into Jivatma. And therefore he says, Taihi Jadaihi Na Avabhasyate. Atma cannot be illumined by any of the Jada objects. And he gives the example, Deepo Ghatadivat. Just as a lamp can never be illuminated by the pot. Why? Because it is a lamp which illumines the pot. The reverse is not possible. Even if there is a mirror in front of you, when the lamp illumines the mirror, it may look as if the mirror is generating light. But that light is a borrowed light from the lamp. And that borrowed light can never illuminate the original light. That is the text of this verse. So this will stop here in case you have any questions.
Om Acharya-ji, there is a question in my mind. You mentioned that the sense organs, they perceive the pot or XYZ, any object. I mean, and then the vritti is formed in the mind. But where did the pot come from in front of the sense organs?
Because you opened your eyes.
So why should there only be a pot?
Pot is only an example. I say.
No, but like what I mean to say is there would be many things, but what exactly, if there is no vritti, why is it a pot or a orange or an apple? I mean,
when you open your eyes, there's some object in front of you.
But where does that object essentially come from then? Where is because the vritti will form in the mind, but what is the origin of that object?
I don't understand the question. Objects are there in the world. It is anatma.
So in the world, the objects are coming from where? Because if I am the knower and the perceiver.
Okay, let's go to a place.
Prakriti.
You are not talking about some man-made object. Forget about the man-made objects. Okay. Now, when the universe was formed, let us say that Mount Everest was formed. And you open your eyes and you see Mount Everest. Now reword your question to understand that.
Acharya, I think you probably need to give the Mundaka Upanishad the explanation of, I think that's where the question is coming from, perhaps.
What explanation?
Of how, the web from the spider and the nails that grow, the hair that grows. I think that is the question, basically.
No, that's not the question, actually. The point I'm trying to say is, like, I have opened my eyes. You say that I am seeing the Mount Everest.
Yes.
And let's say the person next to me also sees the Mount Everest.
Yes.
Right? Then a vritti is formed in my mind that this is the Mount Everest.
No, it is not.
So
if you don't know it is Mount Everest, you will just see a big object in front of you, which you don't know what it is.
Right. So
if you have studied geography, then you will know that this particular thing situated in the northern part of India is Mount Everest. So you're connecting all that. Right. That is why we don't use examples like Mount Everest. We use example which is known to you like a pot.
So the point what we are saying is that Prakriti has created the objects in front of us. And when we open, so that is also Anatma. So whatever I perceive may not necessarily be the perception of the person next to me. If I may see an orange as an orange and it is not conditioned as an orange, the other person might see the orange as an apple.
Fine. I mean, that doesn't take away from my argument, no. If he sees it an apple, for him it's apple vritti. For you, it is orange vritti. How does that affect the argument at all?
So the point is, my question, which I don't understand, how did the apple come into being?
The apple came from the apple tree. The orange came from the orange tree.
And that came from where? The Prakriti, the macrocosm, from some bigger...
You are getting into creation. Creation is completely different. Okay, creation is, everything came from Maya. So everything is created by somebody or the other. In case of an orange tree, somebody planted the orange tree and then oranges grew. In case of things like mountains, it came directly from Prakriti. So I am not following your point. The point here is about generation of knowledge. So what object you see is immaterial. How does it matter whether it was created by mankind or created by, Prakriti? It doesn't matter. What is relevant is that you are seeing an object. The vritti of that object is being generated in your mind. Consciousness pervades that object. It recalls from a memory that this looks like an orange to me, or this looks like a pot to me. That's the process. What the object is immaterial.
Okay, Acharya.
We are discussing basically the process of knowledge. That is what we have to remember.
Right, I understand. Thank you.
Okay. Any other question?
Acharya ji, I'm a beginner. I'm asking you a very simple question on what you have just said. Atma Jnanam is never an event in time,
Yes.
unlike Pot Jnanam.
Yes.
So what I'm trying to understand from this is that how do we say, how do we know? We say we've seen Jnani or how a Jnani is. He has Atma Jnanam, but if it's never an event in time, is it always there, or is it never going to be visible or, known? What exactly would this statement mean if we say it's never an event in time?
The point being made is that, which is what Shankara says, nobody ever says, I am not.
Okay.
Do you say? When you get up in the morning, do you use the word I? If you use the word I, you are saying, I am there. I exist.
Okay.
Nobody ever says, I don't exist. Na aham asti, na aham asmi. That is never said.
Right.
I am not there cannot be said, because the person who is saying it, if he is saying it, then he is there.
That means it's not what we are trying to say.
What I am trying to say is that the moment you say I, you accepted that you exist.
Right.
And that is why that Atma Jnanam is never an event. It is always present.
Right. Now I get it.
Okay, so that's what's being
The
said.
I in that case, yes. Thank you.
Not the body, mind, sense complex I.
Yes, correct. The anatma portion is.
Yes, you are talking about the consciousness portion of the I. Okay.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Right. Now, so there's an explanation of this in the next verse also. So he says, Swabodhe Nanya Bodhe Cha. So Swabodhe Na Anya Bodhe Icha. Okay. Swabodhe, to know yourself. Anya Bodha Na Icha. Icha here means need or requirement, not desire. Okay. So Swabodhe Na Anya Bodhe Icha means there is no requirement for any other knowledge for knowing yourself. This is an expansion of the previous verse only. Why? Because Atmanaha Bodhya Rupataya. So you break up that word, Bodha Rupataya Atmanaha, into Atmanaha Bodha Rupataya. The Atman is in the form of self-knowledge only. The moment you say Atman, you are saying Atmajnanam. So Bodha Rupataya. You are none of self-knowledge only. And he gives an example. Na Deepasya Anya Deepe Ichhaha. To know a lamp, to see a lamp, there is no need for another lamp. Why? Because Yatha Swatma Prakashane. Because the lamp illumines itself. And therefore, for a lamp to know itself, he does not need any other lamp. And therefore, how is the Atma known? Sobodhe Anya Bodhaha Ichha Nasti. The Anya Bodhaha here means Vritti Jnana. Swabodha is Swarupa Jnana. So all these words you have to be familiar with, because we discussed it in great detail in the beginning of Atma Bodha. So if you are getting confused here, you have to go back to the first 2-3 sessions where we discussed what is Swarupa Jnanam and what is Vritti Jnana. So when he says Swabodhe Anya Bodha Ichha Nasti, this Anya Bodha means Vritti Jnanam Nasti. It is not necessary to have Vritti Jnanam to know yourself. For pot knowledge, Ghata Jnanam, Ghata Vritti is necessary. And Ghata Vritti, once Ghata Vritti is necessary, then only Ghata Vritti Jnanam can come. Because in Vritti Jnanam, the Chaitanyam is borrowed from the Atma, from Swarupa Jnanam. Therefore, even as the Vritti is being born, as the Vritti comes into being, it must be illuminated by Atma Swarupam. And then only the Vritti Jnanam is born. And therefore, for Ghata Jnanam, Ghata Vritti is necessary because there is a reflecting medium. The Ghata Jnanam is actually what? The Ghata Vritti, which reflects the Atma. That is called Ghata Jnanam. But here, in the case of Atma, Swarupa Jnanam is already there. Vritti Jnanam is not necessary. And therefore, for illumining the Atma, Vritti Jnanam Ichha Nasti. Vritti Jnanam is not necessary at all to know the Atma. Why? Because Atmanaha Bodha Rupataya. Atma itself is in the form of Swarupa Chaitanyam, Swarupa Jnanam. And therefore, reflected consciousness is not necessary to illumine original consciousness. And therefore, he gives the example. Nadipasya anya deepa ichha asti. To know the lamp, that lamp does not require any other lamp. To know Swarupa Jnanam, Vritti Jnanam is not required. And therefore, I'll ask a question. If Vritti Jnanam is not required at all to illumine the Atma, why do we say that Vritti Jnanam is required for moksha?
To remove the ignorance.
Excellent. So Vritti Jnanam is required to remove the ignorance about the Atma, not to illumine the Atma. And that is why we say, I, the Atma, is not an event in time. It is always there. But when you say I, if you know that I means the Atma, that is moksha. But when you say I, if in your opinion the I is the body-mind-sense complex, you are referring to RC, then Vritti Jnanam is required to show you that RC is not I, but I is equal to OC. Okay. Any questions? A very beautiful point has been made that you, the Atma, need not be known. You are always self-evident. All Jnanam is required only to remove the misconception that I am not the Atma. Okay. And how do you do it? So look at verse number 30. So he says, Neti neti iti vakyataha. Second half of the first line. Neti neti iti vakyataha. By using statements like neti neti. And what is the statement? Mahavakyahi. Through the use of Mahavakyam, what will happen? Second line. Vidyat jivatma paramatmanoho aikyam. You can understand? Vidyat. The knowledge generated by Mahavakyahi, use of Vakyam, and statements like na iti, the knowledge generated by these statements, Vidya, through that knowledge, Jivatma Paramatmanoho Aikyam. We should know the oneness of the Jivatma and the Paramatma. So far, I have been saying that I am Atma and everything is Anatma. So there is Dvaitam over here. Now I am going to say that I am the Karanam and this is the Karyam. The moment I say that I am the cause and this is the product, is there any more Dvaitam there? Between product and cause. He is saying that between product and cause, it is only illusory Dvaitam. Between the gold and the necklace, to say that they are different shows that you are ignorant of the fact that the necklace itself is the gold. And the moment you say, I am the gold and this is my product, then you are saying I am the gold and I am the bangle. So Dvaitam has disappeared. So in that knowledge generated by Mahavakyam, Dvaitam will disappear. Okay, so with this, we'll stop for today. And any questions? All these verses.
Nishidya Nikhilopadhi. What was that? What does that mean? The first quarter?
Where?
30th.
Nisheda Nikhila Upadhi. After negating all the Upadhis. So Nikhila Upadhi, the Upadhis, Nishedya, have been negated. Okay, having negated all the Upadhis, which is what all the 5 koshas. You have negated the koshas, how neti neti vakyataha, by using the scriptural statements and Mahavakyahi, so the use of Mahavakyam. And through the use of all this, vidyat, the knowledge which has been generated is what? Jivatma Paramatmano Aikyam. Because upadhis have been negated. You are saying the bangle has been negated. How? In the knowledge that the bangle is not different from the gold. And therefore, I have negated all the koshas in the knowledge that the kosha is not different from Atma itself. So the karyam is none other than the karanam. This is what is being said. In the knowledge that the product is the same as the cause, Dvaitam vanishes.
So,
Yeah.
for Dvaitam to vanish, that means the experience of I am Brahman, that experience is there. The moment he says, I know this, there's still the Dvait will be there.
Anybody wants to answer that question?
Can't be experienced.
No, you can't just say half a sentence. You have to explain in full. She has to understand, no? Who wants to explain?
When I say I experience that moment, again, I'm basically acknowledging Vaitam. Because to experience something, there has to be two different things.
That's one argument, but I want a more potent argument.
Okay.
Acharya, can I try?
Yeah, please.
So whatever can be experienced or the experiencer is not Atma.
Yeah.
So Atma is always self-eliminating. So anything else we say, I experience the pramanam to the prameyam is not the Atma.
Okay.
So it is always there. All we are doing is trying to remove the ajnanam. So the self-elimination is obvious.
Yeah. So remember that you can never say that I am experiencing Brahman. Because if you are saying that, as Munmun also said, you are trying to segregate into two parts, that I am the experiencer and Brahman is the experienced. In which case you are not Brahman anyway, aren't you? And if you are Brahman, then you cannot say I am the experiencer, because where is the experience? So the statement, which is quite common in today's spiritual, modern spirituality, that experience of Brahman, that is not accepted by Vedanta. Because you are Brahman. Where is the question of you experiencing yourself? Or as if you have to say Pratibodhit Matam. Whenever you say I, that I is imbued with Brahman experience. Because the moment you begin to talk or say or even think, Brahman experience is already there, because you are Brahman. And therefore, to say that the experience of Brahman is incorrect.
So this Chidanand Avastha, only Anand is there. You're not knowing the Anand, you are the Anand itself. So is that the experience, or is that when you know
there is no experience? As Brahman, for any experience, you require reflecting medium for any experience. So I'll give you an example. Supposing that there is a fire in front of you. Okay. By itself, can you experience the fire? What do you require to know that the fire is hot?
to touch it.
Which means what?
You're using your sense, body.
Your finger, no, use it in Vedantic terms. Your finger is reflecting the heat.
Yes, sir.
So that finger is a reflecting medium. The heat of the fire is reflected in a finger. That reflected heat is what you experience. The original heat of the fire can never be experienced unless there is a reflecting medium. Whatever way you look at it, if you want to experience heat of the fire or the cold of the ice, you require an experience and a reflecting medium to experience. And
but Atma doesn't need any indriya, all the indriyas plus the man, without that we have to experience it.
Define we.
The Atma, the Jivatma.
Jivatma is different from Paramatma, okay?
Yeah.
Jivatma can experience because Jivatma has got mind, body, senses, everything.
Yeah.
But Atma doesn't have body, doesn't have mind, doesn't have sense organs. What can he experience? I think you require a little bit of...
experience.
You cannot experience. Atma cannot experience. So unless that concept is very clear, that as Atma, I can never experience anything. The moment I am experiencing something, I have to understand that I am having a reflecting medium which I am using. A reflecting medium is always anatma. And therefore the experience of anything, happiness, sorrow, anything, even ananda, the experience of ananda requires a reflecting medium, requires anatma. Without the anatma, there is no experience. Food for thought. This is all there, Tattva Bodha. If you have not understood, you have to go back to the relative Tattva Bodha classes and keep on understanding until it sort of becomes second nature to you. You have to understand that you cannot say I am experiencing if you are talking of yourself as Atma. Only the body, mind, sense complex, which is a reflecting medium, only by use of that can there be any experience.
So when there's no oneness, that I-ness has gone, then how will we say? Then what will we say?
When there is no one.
Aham is not the I factor. If it disappears, then only there's no experience after that. As long as the I factor is there, the experience is there. I am doing, I do this.
It depends on what you mean by I. If you mean I am the Atma, then there is no experience. If you mean I am the Jivatma, then definitely there is experience. So the usage of words have to be very carefully done in Vedanta. Otherwise you get confused. The moment you use the word I as referring to Atma, you are akarta and abhokta. There is no experience. There is no action also.
So, but in Aham Brahmasmi, Aham is there. That's I. No?
That is the RC saying it, not the OC.
Okay.
The OC cannot say.
RC is saying, but it's just intellectual knowledge, right?
Yeah, all knowledge is intellectual. Only. Intellectual only. All knowledge is in the intellect only.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, I also had the same confusion. I still have not confusion. I mean, it was very difficult basically to accept this fact that no experience. But so that's why probably I can understand what she is asking for. The same thing I had a few months back too. I still have many times, but probably I have started accepting this thing that yes, there is no experience. So
you have to logically go through it. It is not that we are saying you accept the statement of the Pramanam. We are saying you use your logic. Yeah. Use logic to show you that you cannot experience Brahman. Just like you cannot experience heat unless there is a reflecting medium. Use that logic. And that is how to convince yourself that yes, Brahman cannot be experienced. You have to take the statement as a Pramanam on faith. But to make you accept it, yes, you are free to use logic. You are free to use your own experiences. Anubhava and Yukti have to be used to understand Pramanam. I know it's difficult to understand at this stage, especially for those who are new. Atma Bodha is a text which is slightly advanced, so it takes time to understand. But you have to, take it in a stride for the time being. If you don't understand, it's fine right now. Just keep it there, accept it as the word of the Pramanam, and keep thinking about it. Sooner or later, the real sense will, be assimilated. Okay, so with this, we'll stop for the day. Thank you so much. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat Om Namah Shivaya.
Thank you so much.